Here we go, my video on NIO sub-brand Firefly. First time I had my hands on the car here in Shanghai, so it's the auto show soon, and in this context NIO not only unveiled finally the car but also brought it into the store. So here it's at the NIO house in Shanghai, where I finally had the chance to look at the car in person after I've been very excited about the launch of the brand during NIO Day in Guangzhou, right, a couple of months ago. I mentioned how personally I got a much better feeling and optimistic outlook on this car than I had on Onvo, and in a recent video I also mentioned how I think that this might actually be surprising people. So whether or not this really will be a success and what my expectations are, I will be telling you in this video, but of course not as a car review, but more from a strategic point of view, from an investment perspective. What is for sure for now is that it already got lots of foot traffic in the store. By the way, it is my girl playing in the NIO house. I have to say I am still very happy with NIO houses and the concept and the community stuff, and especially now as a parent with the kindergartens, I see this concept working, and I think it's a great way of marketing, word of mouth and happiness for consumers. But back to the car, knock knock, what's new here? See me checking out the car, and I'm not sure if that's translating through the imagery here, but the first and most important point that I saw here is that this is a cheap car. And that's both good and bad, right? So the good part is I've been very positively surprised by the low starting price of Firefly, which is good because it's increasing the total addressable market, right? But looking at it in person, you can see here, maybe it's plasticky, maybe the panel gaps are not entirely perfect, or on purpose a little bit wide here and there. You see how the door handle is not perfectly finishing and in line with the entire chassis and so on, but these have been a series of design decisions that I possibly have made, and also importantly material and quality decisions that I've made. Still, they're using some materials that are really soft and nice, like in the indoor here, but then the door handle, again, this looks plasticky. I don't know, even on the video I think it doesn't look that great, but it also doesn't feel great, to be honest. So this is a really cheap material, and you can clearly see at some spots how this car is very similar to some of the other Chinese EV out there. And that's something that I personally haven't been used of from NIO in the past. NIO has always been very different because it's safety, quality approach and so on. And with this car, they're going a different way. So, while the overall look is still NIO-esque, you can see they have set some highlights, like I would say, for example, the seats, again, are really, from a quality perspective, they feel nice. If you sit on them, they are comfy. The material being used is nice. If you look around in this cabin, it does look sleek designed and modern, and nice materials on the surface, and some of them, if you touch them, they look nice. But then again, like these door handles, some bits are really plasticky and cheap, and others I'm not sure how well they're gonna age, but I think that's what you get if you get a cheap car, right? So the first time seeing NIO going that route of making those very obvious design and quality compromises there in order to come up with this car. But look at it, I mean, it's still looking very sleek. From the visual aesthetics and appearance, the tricks that I would say, let's say it like that some of the other car manufacturers also sometimes have used, but NIO has always been good on design, right? So they still play it very well. And here, I think, one of the key learnings here is that, that some parts you can see the cheapness, and in other parts they have those standout features and quality materials being used. And here, that pragmatic surprises, like the use of space and a seat opening up to have more trunk space below that and so on. These are some of those highlight points more on the functionality side, on pragmatic side, which I love to see here, and which I think set them apart for now. Obviously the other ones will follow up and copy some of this, but for now it's only the Firefly brand that is having it, and it's fitting in this overall theme, like where I think I see Firefly more as a design, as a concept, right? A certain story and a certain value proposition made up here, less so the actual car guys type of car, if I frame it like that. You know, you don't get to a Firefly in order for the acceleration or for the material being used and so on. It doesn't set the standards, like that's what I said in my last video, for example, with Seeker, using this great alpaca material on the floors and stuff. No, here for Firefly, it's really giving people value by being something different, but then again, really just giving people what they want and need at the current point in time. So for the display, for example, it's not an outstanding display. It's more like the other car manufacturers, but it's very, very sleek. It's very responsive. It's working fast. And something that NIO in the beginning was lagging, for example, and then you possibly heard about this already, using more fingers, you get to unlock those fast switches, toggles for example, the fan and for also the volume and stuff like that. So these are some, little well thought through design changes here, which I think fit in an overarching theme of that people are getting tired of too many screens and of having functionality hidden behind a couple of menus that you just first need to get to. This piece actually I really liked. So this almost looks a bit more premium in my opinion, although it's plasticky again, but this is not a copycat of the Model 3 type of approach of this little bar in the front on the dash again. Instead, it's reminding me rather of the ET9. Instead, the ET9 is having a little screen here, but I do like this look here, and it's kind of bringing a more visual, nice balance into the car, into the front. Other than that, pretty much what you would expect from a normal interior of a car. Nothing too fancy, nothing, to be honest, also nothing really outstanding new, other than maybe this little unfolding, again, use of space here under armchair resting space. And so, lots of space where you can hide away stuff. Then happy to see those handles still being in place, in contrast to, for example, what's Tesla currently doing, removing all of that. The quality of those are not nearly where NIO is. So again, a distinction here. Also, the screen here is very pixely and small. So you can see that is very cheap as well, and it's right in front of your eyes. So it's not trying to hide away the cheapness in some parts, to be honest, right? And that is certainly not making it a super premium experience, right? I said in my last video about Changsha, where people are not able to afford all of those, latest NIO models, for example, not even Envo models in some occasions, that maybe the Firefly is also just skimming a too high of a part of the target group. But now with this lower starting price and with some of these clearly visible cost-saving measures, I should say, I would really think that it's trickling maybe even down to a wider audience than I thought before. Then you have the ease of switching between the chairs or the seats in the front, because there is nothing between it. And then this was my big positive. I was worried about the steering wheel, which I mentioned before. In my personal impression, it's a very important part of the car because it's really deriving so much of the quality feel from the steering wheel, and the material is really nice. It's soft. It's the proportion is, I think, still good. Could be, I rather like the NIO steering wheel, but certainly they haven't chosen a bad design for the Firefly car here. Instead, that should rather give it a better look and feel overall. Again, the knobs, they're not great here for the windows and stuff, but it is what it is, okay? You you get what you pay for, but still overall, as I said, the concept, it really works. It really does seem coherent and an overall box and piece of value that you get out of it here. Then again, the frunk. A nice little feature here. I don't know if you can see that, but this one is nicely carved out here on the side to also hold a water bottle. Many cars have the problem that you cannot really get a bottle inside there. So yeah, NIO, again, designers always been doing a great job in various things that they're designing, right? So they know how to do it. And yeah, the back seat, not too much space, but obviously what you would expect. You would go for an Envo if you need the really backseat space. So again, a nice distinction and differentiation here from the other NIO brand. And here again, another highlight, I think the rims and the tires are reminding me more of NIO and look more high-end actually than what you usually get on those low-priced cars. So overall, I should say this has been a very, very good decision on where to set highlights and where to save cost overall. And the whole package now becomes to a very refined package, in my opinion, that could be more successful than maybe people out there have anticipated. Now, lots of question marks still. So for Europe, I think this could be highly anticipated, good car and so on, but you know, it's more of the Chinese car that people really expect it to be. It's not the ultra premium. You know, people, when they saw NIO, you know, people don't know how to deal with a Chinese car that's really more like a Porsche, and also in terms of pricing coming in higher than what they would think. Now with Firefly, it's meeting more those expectations of the European car buyers, I think, where you see some of the made in China stuff in a sense. But then I think what they also will expect are Chinese prices. And so I think this car should be hopefully priced below 30,000 euros. And then it could be positioned right and find also lots of buyers in Europe. Of course, we still have a couple of unknowns, but I think this car, you know, may be seen not only in brand, but also from what I now seen from the functionalities and the looks and feel and so on, below the Mini, the BMW Mini, because it's coming with the BMW and the Britishness and whatever, and maybe some higher quality materials in some spaces of the cars. But speaking of space, this car has better functionality, more pragmatic, more space and so on than a Mini should have, and therefore might be the better option in real life for people. And it does give a fresh look, right? So that's all great. And then in China, it's also coming in slightly lower than the Mini in a price, but higher than, for example, the BYD Dolphin, which makes a lot of sense. So, but still maybe in reach of some of the Dolphin buyers, maybe some people who have a little bit of extra cash to spend and are young and or looking for the second car and so on, might opt for the Firefly, also to its stylishness and uniqueness and so on. That bringing also more traffic to the NIO brand again and so on. So yeah, that's why I think it could surprise in China, but also in Europe if it's priced well. And then, of course, we still have the unknowns about the swapping stuff, but this car doesn't need swapping. Well, in a sense, it needs swapping because it will have range anxiety. Look at the door handles here. You can see, you know, that sort of stuff. You're not used from NIO, that is not looking even out. And also, there's no electric feedback from the door handles. It's all manual and stuff. That's a clear differentiation. But again, battery swapping, that range will not be great. The driving, it will not be as fast. By the way, I still haven't driven it, so I need to make the test drive. Battery swapping will bring additional benefits to that car for sure. Also in terms of battery as a service and what that might do to the price on top of that. And then, for a long range city to city trip, let's say Munich to Milano, that car will not be enough, although the space will be good enough. So this will be interesting to see for the application and use cases, how well this will be working with the larger target group and so on. And then, when and how those details will be unveiled and what this could actually bring on top of what is already in this package here. But you know, smaller battery of course makes sense due to the cost. Stylish for the city, but maybe not enough for the long run. But then when battery swapping comes in, it may have to the solution to this range anxiety issue, which surely will come with this car. And then, you know, the driving features not as accelerating as quick as maybe the Mini, which might be more fun to drive. I don't know. Yeah, these are some of the open question marks that I have for now. But other than that, you know, that's my first impressions for the car. As you see, I'm quite excited about it. Also, you know, this is plastic here again. This type of stuff clearly not as a strong, sturdy feel as with NIO. Usually, you know, hard material involved there, lots of plastic as well and stuff. But, you know, overall, who cares? Who cares? You get a really good car at a low price, it seems. And the looks is great, and you get lots of surprise elements in there as well. So I wouldn't mind it as a second car. I wouldn't mind it as a city car and so on. And this one, I think, could be helpful for NIO as a brand, for NIO investors, and is a positive surprise addition to the NIO portfolio, makes it complete. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. That's my first impressions. Thanks for watching. See you in my next videos.